Welcome to Zoe Stories. Game turned me into a woman. The first time I realized my life could change forever, I had no idea it would be in such a dramatic, unthinkable way. My name is Alex, and on the surface, I was just another 20-something trying to balance work, a relationship, and the endless pressure of adulthood. But beneath that carefully constructed facade, I carried a secret, one I had kept hidden for years, even from those closest to me. I loved to cross-dress. Not for attention, not for approval, but because it allowed me to explore a side of myself that felt free, beautiful, and alive. It was my escape, my private world, and the one place where I felt truly myself. I lived in a small, modern apartment tucked in the bustling heart of the city. The place wasn't huge, but it was cozy enough to feel like mine. The walls were decorated with framed photographs of cityscapes, a few abstract paintings I'd impulsively bought, and a large mirror in the living room that had been both my friend and my judge over the years. It was in that mirror that I would spend countless nights, experimenting with outfits, makeup, and hairstyles that allowed me to inhabit my female persona fully. Tonight, however, would feel different. Tonight, the stakes were higher. My life had recently been a delicate balancing act, made all the more precarious by Isabella. She was smart, striking, and utterly captivating. The kind of woman who commanded attention without even trying. I had met her at a small coffee shop 2 years ago, and our relationship had blossomed quickly. But she was also intuitive, and I knew that if she ever suspected the truth about me, it could change everything. That thought alone sent shivers down my spine, but at the same time, it made the secret all the more intoxicating. Isabella and I had a rhythm to our relationship, one that was equal parts passion and tension. She loved my playful side, my wit, and the way I could make her laugh at the most absurd things. But she also had boundaries, and she could be unforgiving if she felt those boundaries were crossed. That was why my cross-dressing life remained strictly hidden from her, or so I thought. The thrill of keeping this secret gave me a heady mix of fear and excitement every time I transformed into the woman I secretly adored being. It wasn't just about clothes or makeup. It was about the sensation of stepping into a world that existed solely for me. The silky fabric of a dress against my skin, the faint scent of perfume lingering in the air, the way high heels altered my posture and presence. It all combined to make me feel alive, beautiful, and untouchable. I cherished these moments, but I also feared them. Each time I indulged, I wondered, what if someone saw me? What if Isabella discovered my secret? The thought of her disappointment, or worse, rejection, was a shadow that loomed over my joy. Tonight, the apartment was quiet, unusually so. Isabella had mentioned she'd be out with friends until late, giving me the rare freedom to truly indulge in my secret world without interruption. I glanced at the clock, 9:45 p.m. Plenty of time. The city outside buzzed with life, but inside, I was free to explore a different rhythm. I pulled open my wardrobe, my fingers brushing against neatly hung dresses, soft blouses, and skirts of every color and style imaginable. Each piece represented a version of myself I longed to inhabit. As I carefully selected a dress, a soft, flowing number in deep emerald green, I felt a familiar thrill run through me. This was no casual outfit. This was an armor of confidence, vulnerability, and fantasy all rolled into one. I laid it out on the bed, pairing it with delicate accessories, a thin bracelet, subtle earrings, and the small high heels that had become my favorite companions during these private transformations. I could almost hear the subtle click of the heels against the floor in my mind, a sound that marked my metamorphosis from Alex to the woman I secretly longed to be. Then came the makeup. I sat at my vanity, the lights casting a warm glow over my reflection. Each brushstroke, each carefully applied layer of foundation and eyeliner, was a deliberate act of creation. The mirror began to reflect someone entirely new, someone who could be bold, vulnerable, and unapologetically feminine. As I applied the final coat of lipstick, a deep, alluring shade of red, I barely recognized myself. And yet, for the first time in years, I felt completely whole. There was also a small part of me, a cautious whisper of fear, reminding me that this freedom came with risk. Isabella could walk in any moment. My carefully curated secret could be exposed in an instant. The thought tightened my chest, but I pushed it aside. Tonight was for me, for the thrill, for the escape. I practiced walking across the room, the soft click of heels against the wooden floor echoing in the empty apartment. Each step was a mix of exhilaration and terror. I could almost hear the city below, indifferent to the drama unfolding within my small sanctuary. I adjusted the dress one last time, smoothing the fabric over my hips, and took a deep breath. Little did I know, this night would not remain a private indulgence. What began as a simple exploration of identity and desire would soon spiral into a game. A game that would challenge everything I thought I knew about myself, about Isabella, and about the delicate line between freedom and exposure. And so, as the clock ticked closer to 10 p.m., I stood in front of the mirror one last time, unaware that this night would mark the beginning of a transformation far more profound than anything I had experienced before. My reflection smiled back, radiant and full of life, completely oblivious to the game that was about to turn me into a woman. The apartment was silent except for the faint hum of the city outside. I had been standing in front of the mirror for almost an hour, adjusting my dress, testing the heels, and perfecting my makeup. Each glance at my reflection brought a rush of conflicting emotions: exhilaration, vulnerability, and an undeniable fear that someone might walk in and see me like this. The thrill of being alone, yet the constant tension of potential discovery, made my heart race. I moved slowly, savoring every sensation. The fabric of the emerald dress felt cool against my skin, brushing softly over my shoulders and down my torso. I adjusted the hem, feeling the delicate flow of material over my legs. High heels changed everything. They forced me to carry myself differently, to hold my posture straighter, and somehow they made me feel taller, more commanding, more visible. But with visibility came vulnerability. Every click on the wooden floor was a reminder that this world I had created for myself could vanish in an instant if someone entered unexpectedly. My mind drifted to Isabella. She was always so confident, so perceptive, and I couldn't shake the thought that she might sense something was off even if I tried to act normal. I had never told her about my cross-dressing. Not fully, not once, and part of me wondered if I ever could. I loved her, yes, but this secret was mine alone, and sharing it could shatter the delicate balance of our relationship. Still, the fear of discovery only made the thrill more intoxicating. I sat on the edge of the sofa and ran my fingers through my hair, adjusting the wig I had chosen for tonight. It was a soft chestnut brown, styled in loose waves that framed my face perfectly. I had experimented with wigs before, but tonight felt different. There was a sense of anticipation in the air, as if the city itself was waiting to see what would happen next. My reflection looked back at me, unrecognizable yet familiar, a version of me that existed only in these private, precious moments. Then I remembered the game. Isabella had teased me earlier in the week about playing a fun challenge while she was out. A playful dare that started as a joke, but something about the way she had smirked made me question her intentions. What if tonight's indulgence wasn't as private as I thought? The thought sent a shiver down my spine. I couldn't shake the sense that tonight, my hidden world was about to collide with reality in ways I had never anticipated. I decided to move to the living room, letting my heels click against the floor. Each step was deliberate, each movement a careful balance between elegance and caution. I ran my hands over the dress again, feeling the smooth fabric and the subtle shimmer under the warm light. My reflection followed me, almost like a shadow, perfectly mirroring my movements and amplifying my excitement. Sitting on the sofa, I let myself imagine the possibilities. The thrill of being caught, the fantasy of someone discovering this side of me, it was dangerous, intoxicating, and utterly irresistible. I leaned forward, adjusting the neckline of the dress, and for a moment, I allowed myself to imagine what it would be like if Isabella walked in right now. The thought made my pulse quicken, my stomach twist with a mixture of fear and excitement. My internal struggle was real. I loved this world, but I also feared it. The line between pleasure and danger was thin, and every decision I made tonight carried weight. Should I risk more? Should I push the boundaries further, or should I stay safe, hidden, and comfortable in my solitude? The answer wasn't clear, and that ambiguity was part of the allure. I decided to explore further. I moved to the bedroom, where my collection of accessories awaited. Jewelry, scarves, and delicate pieces that completed each outfit. Each item was a tool of transformation, a key to unlocking the persona I cherished. I selected a silver necklace, its pendant catching the light, and carefully placed it around my neck. The reflection in the mirror seemed to respond, as if acknowledging the completion of my metamorphosis. The next step was the makeup. I had perfected this routine over months, experimenting with shades, textures, and techniques until each application became second nature. Tonight, however, felt different. Each stroke of eyeliner, each layer of mascara, brought a heightened awareness of how fragile this secret world was. I could feel my pulse in my fingertips, a subtle tremor that reflected both fear and exhilaration. I practiced a few poses in front of the mirror, testing the angles, the expressions, the subtle gestures that defined my female persona. It wasn't just about looking like a woman. It was about feeling like one, inhabiting the confidence, vulnerability, and sensuality that came with the transformation. I smiled, tilted my head, adjusted my shoulders. Every motion deliberate, every movement a rehearsal for the inevitable collision of fantasy and reality. Then came the shoes. High heels, chosen carefully to match the dress and the mood of the night. The first step was always the hardest, balancing elegance and awkwardness, confidence and fear. I took a deep breath, slid my feet into the heels, and allowed myself to feel the familiar shift in posture and presence. Each click against the floor was a heartbeat, echoing the rhythm of my desire and anxiety. Suddenly, a sound from the hallway made me freeze. Footsteps? No, just the city outside. I laughed nervously at my own paranoia, but the adrenaline surged through me. The thrill of being alone, yet constantly at risk of discovery, made the experience more intense, more real. I moved back to the living room, testing the flow of movement, adjusting the dress, practicing the subtle sway of hips that completed the illusion. For a moment, I allowed myself to revel in it fully. The reflection staring back at me was not Alex. It was someone else, someone daring, beautiful, and alive in a way I had never felt in my everyday life. I touched my face, feeling the smoothness of the makeup, the softness of the wig, the delicate strength in my posture. Every element came together perfectly, yet every element was precarious. One wrong step, one unexpected visitor, and the world I had created could shatter in an instant. I imagined Isabella walking through the door, catching me mid-transformation. The thought sent shivers down my spine. Would she laugh, scold me, or something else? The ambiguity fueled my thrill, making each step, each gesture, each breath charged with tension. I was both performer and audience, trapped in a private theater where the stakes were entirely personal. The night stretched on. I experimented with different poses, walked around the apartment, and even took a few tentative selfies, marveling at the reflection on my phone screen. Each image was a testament to the duality of my existence, the Alex the world knew, and the woman I had always secretly wanted to be. And yet, the sense of danger never fully faded. Every creak in the apartment, every distant sound from the street below, reminded me that I was alone, but not entirely safe. Somewhere in the back of my mind, a warning whispered, tonight would not remain just a private indulgence. The game had begun. The first hint of suspense arrived as a notification on my phone. A text from Isabella, running late, be home around 11:30. Relief? Momentary. But also, a clock ticking toward uncertainty. I had less than 2 hours to enjoy this world before her return, and every second felt like both an eternity and a fleeting moment of freedom. I took one last look in the mirror, straightened my shoulders, and allowed myself a small, nervous smile. Tonight, the thrill of transformation was no longer just a private indulgence. It was a game, a challenge that would test my courage, my secrecy, and the fragile line between desire and discovery. Little did I know, the night was only beginning. The next steps, the upcoming choices, and the subtle dangers would push me further than I had ever gone, transforming not just my appearance, but the very way I understood myself. The emerald dress clung softly to my skin as I moved around the apartment, feeling every curve in a way that was both thrilling and terrifying. I had always loved the private intimacy of these moments, the sensation of inhabiting a different self, yet tonight felt charged with something more. Maybe it was the way Isabella's text had reminded me that she would be home soon, or maybe it was the quiet hum of the city below, a constant reminder that life outside my sanctuary never stopped. I carefully adjusted the neckline of the dress, feeling the delicate fabric slide under my fingertips. The heels added an unfamiliar rhythm to my steps, a mix of elegance and imbalance, that made me more aware of every motion. My reflection followed me like a silent observer, watching a woman take form out of my secret desires. Each movement made me aware of the contrast between Alex, the person the world knew, and the persona I had created in these moments, poised, delicate, and undeniably feminine. As I walked toward the sofa, I noticed the small silver bracelet I had chosen for tonight. I held it up to the light, spinning it gently around my wrist before fastening it. Small gestures like these made the transformation feel complete. I was no longer just experimenting. I was performing, inhabiting a role that felt both exhilarating and frightening. Each detail, from the subtle shimmer of my earrings to the precise curl of my wig, contributed to a growing sense of authenticity that I couldn't ignore. Yet with this authenticity came fear. Every sound, every creak of the floorboards, every distant car horn became a potential threat. What if Isabella came home early? What if a neighbor caught a glimpse through the window? The tension built with each passing minute, making the thrill of being alone in this secret world sharper, more intoxicating. I had to remind myself to breathe, to savor the moment, even as my pulse quickened with anticipation and anxiety. I sank onto the sofa, crossing my legs carefully so the dress flowed elegantly. The soft click of the heels on the wooden floor echoed in my ears as I shifted my position, feeling the unfamiliar sway of my body. I traced the edges of the dress with my fingertips, marveling at the way it transformed my posture, my presence, and even my thoughts. I was hyper-aware of my reflection, noticing how the wig framed my face perfectly and how the makeup highlighted the lines of my features. For a brief moment, I allowed myself to imagine the impossibility of someone discovering me like this, and the thrill made my heart pound. My thoughts drifted to Isabella. What would she think if she saw me now? Would she laugh, scold me, or worse, misunderstand my desires entirely? The ambiguity of her reaction both terrified and excited me. I loved her, and the idea of disappointing her was one of my deepest fears. Yet there was an undeniable allure in imagining her reaction, a flirtation with risk that made the transformation all the more compelling. I brushed a stray lock of hair from my face, smiling at the reflection in the mirror, both nervous and emboldened by the possibility of discovery. I moved to the vanity to make small adjustments to my makeup. Each brush stroke and layer of lipstick reminded me that this persona was carefully constructed, a fragile but intoxicating illusion. The soft glow of the vanity lights amplified every detail, and I found myself lost in the reflection of a woman I barely recognized but desperately wanted to be. The sensation was almost overwhelming, a mix of exhilaration, vulnerability, and desire that coursed through me in waves. Then came the small thrill, the idea of leaving subtle signs of my transformation behind. I placed a pair of dangling earrings on the edge of the vanity, their sparkle catching the light. A scarf draped casually over the back of a chair. These small markers of my secret life added to the excitement, a subtle game of leave and discover that heightened every sensation. Every detail mattered, and I found myself obsessing over the precise arrangement of objects, the angle of a photograph, even the fold of the dress on the bed. But as much as I reveled in the transformation, I couldn't shake the awareness that the night was not infinite. Isabella's return was inevitable, and with it, the potential collapse of my private world. The thought sent a jolt of adrenaline through me, sharpening my senses and making me more acutely aware of every sound, every shadow, every possibility of exposure. I practiced walking again, heels clicking in deliberate rhythm, testing the sway of my hips, the tilt of my head. I wanted to perfect the illusion, to inhabit it fully, yet the knowledge that discovery could strike at any moment made the task both thrilling and terrifying. I paused in front of the mirror, studying the reflection that had become so familiar yet so foreign. The woman staring back was confident, poised, and undeniably feminine, yet the man underneath, Alex, remained a fragile observer of this new existence. The duality of my life had never been so clear, nor had the stakes ever felt so high. The thrill of secrecy and the fear of exposure blended into a potent mix that made my pulse quicken and my mind race with possibilities. Finally, I settled onto the sofa again, taking a deep breath and letting myself sink into the experience. I ran my fingers lightly over the dress, feeling the softness of the fabric, the subtle shimmer under the lamplight. I let myself smile, imagining the delight and the tension that would come if someone were to walk in unexpectedly. Each movement, each glance, each heartbeat carried with it the intoxicating combination of pleasure and fear, the essence of why I had pursued this hidden life for so long. Tonight, I realized, was more than just cross-dressing. It was a delicate dance between two realities, a game where the stakes were emotional, personal, and dangerously high. The apartment was my stage, the mirror my audience, and I, the performer, was poised on the edge of discovery, exhilaration, and self-realization. Little did I know, the game had only just begun, and the challenges awaiting me would test not only my courage and secrecy but also the very boundaries of my identity. Every choice I made in the next hour would carry consequences I had never imagined, shaping the course of a night that was destined to change my life forever. I had been standing by the window for a while, watching the city lights flicker against the darkened skyline. The quiet hum of traffic below contrasted sharply with the rapid thump of my own heartbeat. In that moment, I felt entirely exposed, as if the night itself could see me in a way no one else ever had. The emerald dress clung to me softly, the heels making every step a deliberate act, each movement a careful balance between elegance and precariousness. I glanced at the clock, 10:45 p.m. Isabella wouldn't be home for another 45 minutes, but the thrill of potentially being caught was irresistible. I tilted my head, brushing a strand of wig hair behind my ear, and studied my reflection in the window's glass. The city behind me blurred, and for a fleeting second, I felt like a completely different person. A woman poised, confident, and alive in a way Alex could never be. The apartment felt unusually alive tonight. Every creak in the floorboards, every faint noise from the hallway, made me jump slightly. I reminded myself to breathe, to steady the rhythm of my pulse, but the adrenaline coursing through me only heightened my awareness. I moved to the bedroom to adjust a small prop I had placed earlier, a delicate silk scarf draped over the chair. It was a subtle detail, almost imperceptible, yet it completed the scene I was crafting, the illusion of my secret life perfectly in place. I ran my fingers along the fabric of the dress again, feeling the way it hugged my curves, the soft shimmer catching the lamplight. Each movement reminded me of how vulnerable I was, how easily this carefully constructed world could collapse if anyone walked in unexpectedly. The thought of Isabella opening the door at that precise moment sent a shiver down my spine. Would she laugh? Be upset? Or would she see the truth of my desires for the first time? I sank onto the edge of the bed, my heels clicking softly against the floor as I shifted. The sensation of wearing them never failed to make me acutely aware of every movement, every subtle sway of my hips, every adjustment of my posture. I closed my eyes and imagined the possibility of someone entering the room, someone witnessing me in this fragile, beautiful state. The mixture of fear and excitement made my heart pound even faster. As I adjusted the wig, brushing the curls gently over my shoulders, I realized just how much this transformation meant to me. It wasn't just about the clothes or the makeup, it was about inhabiting a persona that allowed me to explore parts of myself I had never expressed before. Each layer of lipstick, every stroke of eyeliner, every small accessory was a step into a world where I felt fully alive. And yet, that world was so delicate, so temporary, that the risk of losing it at any moment only intensified the thrill. I moved back to the living room, heels clicking against the floor with a rhythm that matched the rapid beat of my pulse. The emerald dress flowed beautifully with every step, the fabric swaying naturally with my movements. I paused near the mirror and studied my reflection, turning slowly to see every angle, every curve, every subtle detail that defined this other version of me. The woman in the mirror was confident, almost daring. But Alex, the person beneath the surface, felt exposed, vulnerable, and entirely at the mercy of the night's unfolding events. Suddenly, a faint sound from the hallway made me freeze. Footsteps? My heart skipped a beat as I strained to listen. No, just the apartment settling, I told myself. But the thrill of near discovery tightened my chest and made my breath shallow. I tiptoed to the sofa and settled carefully, trying to maintain an air of casual composure while every nerve in my body screamed that danger could strike at any second. I thought about Isabella again. What would happen if she walked in and caught me like this? The fantasy played out vividly in my mind, her initial surprise, the confusion in her eyes, and perhaps the flicker of understanding that I had been hiding a part of myself from her. The thought sent waves of adrenaline through me, and I realized that the risk was part of the allure. The danger, the possibility of exposure, made the transformation more thrilling, more real. To distract myself from the growing tension, I experimented with small movements, walking carefully around the living room, adjusting the hem of the dress, testing the sway of my hips, and practicing subtle gestures. Each step, each motion, reinforced the persona I had created, a woman poised, elegant, and undeniably feminine. Yet beneath that confident exterior, Alex's nerves and insecurities remained, whispering warnings that were impossible to ignore. I moved to the vanity again, making minor adjustments to the makeup. Each brushstroke reminded me of how delicate this moment was, how easily it could unravel. I traced my lips with the red lipstick, feeling the familiar thrill of transformation. The mirror reflected a confident, radiant woman, but I knew that a single interruption could shatter the illusion in an instant. Then I noticed a small detail out of place, a high heel slightly tilted, a scarf not perfectly arranged. My pulse quickened as I corrected it, realizing how meticulous I had to be to maintain the fantasy. Each prop, each accessory, each subtle motion was part of a delicate game, one where the stakes were entirely personal yet unbearably high. Finally, I sat on the sofa, letting myself absorb the full experience. The dress, the heels, the makeup, the wig, they all combined to create a version of myself I had longed to inhabit. The thrill of secrecy, the fear of discovery, and the intoxicating blend of confidence and vulnerability made the night feel electric. Every moment was charged with suspense, every glance at the mirror a reminder of the dual life I was leading. And yet, deep down, I knew this was only the beginning. The night's game was far from over, and the choices I made in the next few hours would push me further than I had ever dared. Every movement, every risk, every heartbeat carried consequences I could not yet imagine, shaping a path that would transform not just my appearance, but my understanding of who I truly was. The apartment felt smaller somehow, the shadows longer, as if the space itself knew the tension I carried. I perched on the edge of the sofa, carefully crossing and uncrossing my legs in heels, the soft click of each movement echoing through the room. My reflection in the floor-to-ceiling mirror seemed alive tonight, almost anticipating the next motion I would make. The woman staring back was poised, confident, a perfect embodiment of desire, but Alex, lurking just beneath the surface, trembled with a mixture of excitement and fear. I decided to push myself further. The thrill of transformation was always strongest when I fully inhabited it, not just in appearance but in movement, in gestures, in subtle expressions. I stood and practiced walking toward the vanity, letting the dress sway around my legs. Every step was deliberate, calculated, a dance between elegance and vulnerability. I ran my fingers through the wig again, adjusting the curls so they framed my face flawlessly. The mirror reflected not just my physical transformation but the emotional one, the careful balance between secrecy and expression that made my heart race. A sudden creak from the hallway made me freeze. My pulse spiked, and I pressed my hand to my chest, feeling my heart hammering against my ribcage. Had Isabella returned early? I strained my ears, but the apartment remained silent. My mind, however, refused to stay calm. Every noise became a potential threat, each shadow a possible witness to my secret life. The thrill of near discovery was intoxicating, pushing me further into the persona I had built for myself. I moved toward the bedroom, selecting a delicate scarf and draping it over my shoulders. It wasn't necessary, it was a small accessory, but it made the transformation feel complete. Each prop, each carefully chosen element of my outfit, added to the illusion of a woman inhabiting this space, entirely unaware of the Alex beneath. I caught myself in the mirror again, studying every detail, the curve of my lips, the softness of my hair, the sway of my hips. The reflection was almost someone else, yet intimately familiar. The physicality of the transformation was thrilling. The heels forced me to adjust my posture, elongating my legs and straightening my back. The dress accentuated curves I had never allowed myself to fully acknowledge before. The wig softened my features, giving my face a new dimension. Even the act of applying makeup, subtle blush, mascara, and deep red lipstick, was a ritual that solidified the shift from Alex to this other self. Each small movement, each adjustment, was a step deeper into a world where I felt both exposed and empowered. I caught sight of a photo frame on the shelf, a casual snapshot of Isabella and me smiling at a park months ago. The contrast between that image and my current reflection was startling. Alex, the man in the photograph, seemed distant, almost unreal. And yet, The thrill of inhabiting this other persona, the secret life that existed in these private hours, made me feel more alive than ever before. I brushed a hand over my face, tracing the curve of my cheekbones, the line of my jaw softened by makeup. It was both surreal and intoxicating. The thrill of secrecy mingled with fear, creating a sharp tension in my chest. What if Isabella walked in right now? What if someone outside noticed movement in the window? The very fragility of this moment made it electrifying. I paced the living room slowly, testing the flow of the dress and the balance of the heels, imagining a scenario where someone appeared at the doorway. My mind raced with possibilities, each one thrilling and terrifying in equal measure. To heighten the illusion, I experimented with gestures. Tilting my head, adjusting the hem of the dress, letting my hands rest lightly on my hips. The mirror reflected a woman in motion, graceful and poised, while Alex remained an observer, hidden beneath the surface. It was a delicate balance, one that required constant attention and mindfulness. The slightest lapse could expose the secret I had so carefully nurtured. Then, a sudden noise from the kitchen, a soft clatter, made me jump. My heart raced. Had Isabella returned? I held my breath, straining to hear. The apartment remained silent, but the spike of adrenaline left me trembling. The near discovery had pushed me deeper into the transformation, every movement more precise, every gesture more deliberate. My pulse echoed the rhythm of the city outside, a constant reminder that time was fleeting and stakes were high. I moved back to the vanity to make small adjustments, carefully brushing a curl back into place and smoothing the fabric of the dress over my hips. The reflection staring back at me was mesmerizing, a confident, beautiful woman, living fully in a persona that was both fragile and electrifying. And beneath that reflection, Alex watched, aware of every heartbeat, every flicker of fear, and every surge of thrill. In that moment, I realized the power of this dual existence. The physical transformation was only part of it, the emotional intensity, the suspense of potential discovery, and the intoxicating sense of inhabiting a secret world were equally compelling. Every choice I made, every movement, every breath carried weight, shaping not just the night but the understanding of myself that I had long kept hidden. The clock ticked closer to 11 p.m., each minute heightening the stakes. I had hours, but it felt like only seconds until the boundaries of this world would be tested. And when that moment came, I knew that nothing would remain the same. My reflection, my secret, and even my relationship with Isabella could all be on the line. The thrill, the fear, the transformation. They were only the beginning of a night that would redefine everything. The apartment felt like it had shrunk. Every shadow seemed longer, every creak in the floorboards louder. My heels clicked sharply against the wooden floor as I paced the living room, testing the sway of my hips, adjusting the hem of the emerald dress, and brushing the curls of my wig behind my shoulders. Tonight, every detail mattered. One wrong movement, one stray sound, and the fragile illusion I had built could collapse instantly. I glanced at the clock, 11:05 p.m. Isabella still wasn't home, but the sense of imminent arrival pressed on me like a weight. The thrill of secrecy had always been intoxicating, but now it was edged with a sharp fear. My reflection in the mirror seemed to pulse with the tension, every curve, every line, every subtle gesture amplified by the adrenaline surging through me. The woman staring back was confident, poised, yet I knew that this confidence was a delicate mask. Beneath it, Alex trembled with fear and exhilaration. I moved to the bedroom, running my fingers along the delicate fabrics of scarves and accessories I had carefully arranged. Each prop, each small detail, was part of the performance, part of the delicate world I had created. I draped a silk scarf over my shoulders, feeling its softness against my skin, and adjusted a pair of dangling earrings. The transformation was nearly complete, yet the pressure of potential discovery made every movement feel amplified, significant, dangerous. Then I heard it, a faint noise from the hallway outside the living room. My heart skipped a beat. Footsteps? My pulse quickened, and I pressed myself against the wall, trying to steady my breathing. The sound continued, soft, deliberate. Someone was moving in the apartment. Isabella? Or worse, a neighbor? My mind raced, calculating possibilities. My hands shook slightly as I adjusted the wig, brushed a curl over my shoulder, and took a tentative step toward the door. The thrill of near discovery surged through me. Every nerve in my body screamed with a mix of fear and excitement. The game had escalated from private indulgence to a high-stakes challenge, each second stretching into eternity. I could feel the duality of my existence in sharp relief. Alex, hidden beneath layers of fabric, makeup and heels, and the woman in the mirror, confident, poised, and vulnerable in equal measure. I crept toward the living room, heels clicking softly against the floor, careful to maintain the illusion of casual movement. The reflection in the mirror seemed to watch me, magnifying every detail: the shimmer of the dress, the soft waves of my wig, the subtle curve of my lips highlighted by lipstick. I was both performer and audience, trapped in a delicate dance between exposure and secrecy. Suddenly, a shadow moved across the doorway. My breath caught in my throat. I froze, heart pounding, as the figure hesitated, then moved again. The tension was unbearable, each moment stretching, twisting, and building into a perfect storm of fear and excitement. I had to stay calm, maintain the illusion, or risk everything collapsing in an instant. I crouched slightly, adjusting the scarf around my neck, and let my hands rest delicately on my lap. The shadow stopped. A soft voice called out, "Alex? Are you here?" My stomach flipped. Isabella. She was home earlier than expected. The thrill of secrecy surged to its peak. This was the moment I had imagined and feared. I was caught between the exhilaration of being discovered and the terror of exposure. I moved carefully toward the sofa, trying to appear casual, poised, and natural. My reflection in the mirror captured the precise balance, the elegance of the dress, the sway of the hips, the confidence of the posture, all while concealing the panic racing through my veins. Each step was a careful negotiation between reality and performance, between fear and desire. Isabella entered the apartment fully, her eyes scanning the room. For a moment, she froze. Then, a faint smile played on her lips. "You're different," she said softly, curiosity and amusement mingling in her voice. My pulse spiked. Could she tell? Could she see beyond the illusion? The tension between us crackled, unspoken, a silent acknowledgement of the secret I had nurtured for so long. I exhaled slowly, letting a shaky laugh escape, trying to maintain the composure of the woman in the mirror. The heels dug slightly into my feet, the dress clung perfectly, the wig framed my face just so. Everything was perfect, yet fragile. Every heartbeat, every glance, every subtle gesture mattered in this delicate balance between exposure and secrecy. As Isabella moved closer, examining the small props I had arranged, the scarf, the earrings, the meticulous details of the dress, I realized just how precarious the moment was. One wrong word, one accidental movement, and the carefully constructed world could crumble. Yet, the thrill, the intensity, the heightened emotional tension made the night intoxicating. I was alive in a way Alex could never be, inhabiting a secret identity that was both exhilarating and terrifying. I met Isabella's gaze in the mirror. For a heartbeat, the world froze, two realities colliding: Alex, hidden beneath layers of transformation, and the woman I had created, poised, vulnerable, and electrifying. The near discovery, the suspense, the thrill of secrecy. It all converged into a single breathless moment. And in that instant, I knew the game had only just begun. The choices I made next, the risks I took, would shape not just the night, but the understanding of myself and the fragile boundaries between desire and reality. The night air hit me like a jolt as I stepped out of the taxi, the city lights stretching endlessly around me. The heels dug into the pavement with every step, a sharp reminder that there was no turning back. Tonight was not just about hiding in private. It was about performing in the open, fully exposed to the world and to Isabella, who had orchestrated this challenge. I adjusted the emerald dress, feeling its fabric cling perfectly to my curves. The wind teased the hem, and I held it delicately, aware of every movement. The makeup and wig were flawless, but the sensation of being visible, completely, undeniably seen, sent shivers through me. This was no longer a private game. The stakes had skyrocketed. The venue was buzzing with people. Soft music, laughter, and the clinking of glasses filled the open courtyard, a space far larger and less controlled than the quiet apartment I had grown used to. Every step I took felt exaggerated, each glance from a passerby like a spotlight. My pulse raced, my stomach fluttered. Could anyone tell? Would I embarrass myself? The fear of exposure was intoxicating, making every careful motion feel electrifying. Isabella appeared beside me, her eyes sparkling with amusement and curiosity. "Relax," she whispered, but her tone was teasing, challenging. I could feel her watching me, measuring every step, every gesture. Her presence both grounded me and heightened my anxiety. I had to maintain composure, but the excitement of performing under her gaze made my heart hammer in a rhythm that matched the distant music. I navigated through the crowd, each step in heels forcing me to maintain perfect balance and posture. The sensation of being watched, the thrill of standing out, made my transformation feel complete. Every sway of my hips, every flick of the hair, every tilt of my head was a deliberate choice, a statement that I was no longer just Alex hiding at home. I was someone entirely different, fully inhabiting this new identity. A waiter passed by, balancing a tray of drinks. My reflexes kicked in. I smiled, tilted my head slightly, and accepted a glass. The simple social interaction sent waves of exhilaration through me. The world outside my private space demanded a performance, and I was playing it flawlessly, though every nerve in my body screamed tension. The soft brush of the waiter's hand as he passed the drink, the glint of the glasses under the lights. It all felt amplified, each detail charged with suspense. Isabella leaned closer, her lips almost brushing my ear. "They're all watching," she said softly, a mischievous glint in her eyes. "Do you think you can handle it?" My stomach twisted. The challenge was no longer theoretical. The city, the crowd, the open space. It was a test of courage, composure, and identity. I nodded subtly, my breath shallow, my pulse a drumbeat of both fear and exhilaration. Then came the twist. A familiar figure stepped into the courtyard, a colleague I hadn't expected to see tonight. Their eyes met mine, and for a heartbeat I froze. Recognition flickered across their face, and the world seemed to stop. My secret life, my hidden desires, my entire performance. Everything was at risk of exposure. I forced myself to smile, to nod, to maintain the poise I had cultivated for months in private, but inside my heart raced, and my mind spun with possibilities of disaster. The crowd moved around us, oblivious to the internal storm I was weathering. I walked carefully, balancing on the heels, letting the dress sway naturally, and hoping my posture conveyed confidence rather than fear. Each subtle gesture, each carefully measured movement, was a delicate negotiation between visibility and concealment, thrill and terror. I could feel the duality of my identity pressing at the surface. The woman I was performing for the world, and Alex, hiding beneath, vulnerable and exposed. Isabella's hand brushed mine. "Keep going," she whispered. Her voice was both reassurance and challenge, a reminder that this game was about more than secrecy. It was about courage, control, and embracing the transformation fully. I drew in a deep breath, letting the night air fill my lungs, and stepped further into the open, where every eye could potentially recognize the truth. Every moment could become a revelation. A sudden shout from across the courtyard startled me, and I instinctively adjusted the hem of the dress, the wig, and the tilt of my head. The crowd seemed suddenly alive with movement and noise, but I forced myself to focus, to maintain the performance, to let every fear fuel my poise rather than my panic. Each heartbeat, each flicker of attention from passers-by, was both challenge and confirmation. I was alive in this persona, fully and completely. And in that moment, standing in the open, surrounded by strangers, under the city lights, I realized something profound. This wasn't just about secrecy anymore. It was about power, identity, and choice. Every step I took in heels, every gesture of confidence, every flicker of expression was a declaration. I was more than Alex hiding in shadows. I was someone unafraid to exist fully, even under scrutiny. But the tension was far from over. The colleague was approaching, and every second brought the possibility of discovery. My pulse hammered in my ears. Would they recognize me? Would Isabella intervene? The thrill, the fear, and the exhilaration converged, setting the stage for a confrontation that could change everything. The night was poised on the edge of revelation, the city lights glowing like a spotlight on my dual existence, waiting to see if I could survive the ultimate test of transformation. The colleague was closer now, their footsteps deliberate, their eyes scanning the crowd, and inevitably me. Every instinct screamed for me to flee, to hide, to abandon the persona I had so meticulously built. But stepping back now would shatter everything. I straightened my posture, lifted my chin, and allowed the confidence of the woman in the mirror to take over, masking the tremor that ran through Alex beneath the surface. Isabella stayed at my side, a silent anchor, her presence a mix of challenge and reassurance. Her eyes sparkled with mischief, almost daring me to fail. "You can do this," she whispered, and the words ignited a surge of adrenaline in my chest. I had prepared for months in private, but now the stakes were real: exposure, embarrassment, revelation. Every breath, every heartbeat, carried the weight of possibility. The colleagues stopped just a few steps away, their gaze lingering. For a heartbeat, the world seemed to pause. Recognition flickered in their eyes, a dangerous mix of curiosity and confusion. My mind raced. Could I explain? Could I deflect? Or would a single misstep undo the careful facade I had maintained for so long? I forced a smile, tilting my head slightly, letting my eyes convey calm and composure. "Hey," I said softly, my voice carrying just the right pitch and warmth to match the persona I inhabited. The heels dug into the pavement as I shifted my weight, a subtle sway that reinforced confidence rather than insecurity. The dress clung perfectly, flowing around my legs in a way that demanded attention yet invited admiration. The colleague blinked, startled by the transformation, and for a moment, I felt the intoxicating thrill of power. Here I was, Alex's body transformed, standing in full public view, commanding attention without fear, yet the anxiety beneath it never fully disappeared. The near discovery pushed every sense to the limit: sight, sound, touch, even the faintest vibrations of the city beneath our feet. Isabella leaned close, whispering again, her voice teasing yet firm. "Just play along," she said, her fingers brushing lightly against my arm. That small touch grounded me, anchoring me to the challenge rather than letting fear consume me. I nodded subtly, drawing in a deep breath, and let the persona fully inhabit me. No hesitation, no faltering steps, no wavering glance. I was poised, confident, undeniably feminine, and entirely in control of the illusion. But the world outside was unpredictable. A sudden shout from across the courtyard, a burst of laughter, and someone brushing past my heels made my heart leap. I stumbled slightly, the dress shifting awkwardly. My pulse thundered in my ears. Was it noticeable? Could anyone see me falter? I forced myself to adjust, brushing the fabric back into place and letting a smile spread across my face that was perfectly measured, perfectly rehearsed. Then, the colleague's voice cut through the noise, low but pointed. "Alex? Is that really you?" The words sliced through the thrill, slicing into the heart of my secret. I froze, every muscle tensing. The crowd around us continued to buzz, oblivious to the personal drama unfolding, but for me the world had narrowed to a single point: the gaze of someone who might finally see through the illusion. My mind raced. What could I say? How could I deflect? I glanced at Isabella, her eyes twinkling, challenging me to embrace the moment rather than panic. The adrenaline surged, and I made a choice: not to hide, not to flee, but to fully inhabit the persona I had worked so hard to create. "I just wanted to try something different tonight," I said softly, letting the words float naturally. The hesitation was carefully hidden behind a confident smile, a tilt of the head, a subtle sway of the hips. The persona was alive, captivating, and entirely believable. The colleague blinked, confusion and curiosity mixing across their features, and for a heartbeat, nothing else existed. Then came the unexpected twist, a sudden voice from behind us, a friend of Isabella's, calling her over for a photograph. The crowd shifted, the lights reflecting off surfaces, the heels digging into the uneven pavement. In that moment, I realized just how fragile this world was. One misstep, one stumble, one accidental exposure, and everything would unravel. I took a careful step back, adjusting the dress, the wig, the posture, letting the persona breathe naturally. Each motion was deliberate, a calculated effort to maintain perfection despite the chaos around me. The thrill of performing under pressure surged, every sense heightened, every nerve alive. The stakes were no longer theoretical, they were immediate, personal, and perilously real. Isabella's hand rested lightly on my back, a grounding presence as we navigated the crowd. My pulse continued to hammer, a mix of fear, excitement, and exhilaration. Every glance, every motion, every whispered word of encouragement pushed me deeper into the persona. I realized then that the transformation was no longer just physical, it was emotional, psychological, and entirely consuming. The colleague finally stepped back, eyes narrowing slightly but curiosity unsatisfied. My heartbeat slowed just enough to draw a shaky breath, but the tension remained. The challenge was far from over. Every second in this public space, every interaction, every step in heels carried the risk of exposure, humiliation, or revelation. And yet, the thrill, the empowerment, and the intoxicating blend of fear and excitement made me more alive than ever. The crowd seemed to pulse around me, a living, breathing entity that made every step feel like walking a tightrope. Every glance, every whisper, every reflected light carried the potential for exposure. My heels dug into the pavement with each careful step, reminding me that one misstep could shatter the delicate persona I had built. The dress swayed around my legs, the wig's curls brushed my shoulders perfectly, and the makeup caught the lights just right, but the real challenge was surviving the scrutiny of everyone here. Suddenly, a hand tapped my shoulder. I froze, my stomach twisting into knots. Spinning slowly, I saw Isabella grinning mischievously, holding a small card. "Time for your final challenge," she whispered. My pulse spiked. A challenge? Out here, in front of strangers? The fear and excitement collided, electrifying every nerve. I nodded, trying to maintain composure, my heels sinking slightly into the uneven ground. She gestured toward a raised stage at the center of the courtyard. "You're going up," she said. "Show them who you really are tonight." My heart nearly stopped. Standing in public was already nerve-wracking, but now the spotlight, the stage, and the entire crowd were watching. The weight of scrutiny pressed down, each heartbeat echoing in my ears like a drum. I swallowed hard and took a tentative step toward the stage, heels clicking sharply against the pavement. Every muscle tensed as I walked, swaying my hips with deliberate grace. The crowd's chatter became a distant hum. All I could focus on was maintaining the persona, projecting confidence while suppressing the wild, chaotic mix of fear and exhilaration inside. Halfway to the stage, someone called out, "Is that Alex?" Panic surged through me, freezing my next step. I paused, letting a soft laugh escape, tilting my head just so, and forced a smile. The persona held, flawless in appearance, but my mind raced, calculating every possible reaction. Was anyone noticing the faint tremor in my hands? Could someone detect the pulse in my throat? Finally reaching the stage, I turned to face the audience. The lights caught the shimmer of the dress, the precise curls of the wig, the subtle curve of the lips. For a moment, the world held its breath, and I felt the intoxicating thrill of being seen, completely, undeniably. The applause, or at least the polite claps, was a reminder that the risk had been worth it. The persona I had honed in private was now alive in full public view. Then came the twist. Isabella's phone buzzed, and she glanced at it, eyes widening. "Wait. Someone's coming," she murmured, her tone tight. My pulse jumped. What now? I followed her gaze and saw a familiar figure moving through the crowd. My boss, someone I had least expected to witness this transformation. The panic clawed at my chest, but I forced myself to breathe, to smile, to remain poised. The boss approached, eyebrows raised, scanning the scene. I felt the heels sink slightly into the stage floor, a subtle wobble that sent adrenaline rushing through me. Could I bluff my way through? Could I maintain the illusion? Every fiber of my being screamed for retreat, but retreat was no longer an option. This was the ultimate test, public exposure under impossible pressure. Isabella stepped forward, blocking my direct path, a silent signal that she had my back. "Everything's fine," she said smoothly, voice carrying authority. "Just enjoying the show." My boss blinked, uncertain, and the tension stretched, a fragile thread holding the scene together. I realized then that the challenge wasn't just about standing on stage. It was about commanding attention, owning the persona, and surviving scrutiny from every unexpected angle. I drew in a deep breath, shoulders back, chin lifted, and let the persona fully inhabit me. The fear, the exhilaration, the near discoveries, all of it fused into a single focus, survival and performance. Each step, each subtle gesture, each tilt of the head was precise, controlled, and calculated. The audience's eyes were on me, the city lights reflected in the dress and makeup, and I was alive in a way Alex could never have imagined. Then the unexpected happened. A gust of wind swept across the courtyard, lifting the hem of the dress slightly and threatening to reveal more than I intended. Gasps and murmurs rippled through the crowd. My heart leaped, but I didn't falter. One hand pressed delicately against the fabric, while the other remained gracefully poised at my side. The balance between vulnerability and poise had never been more delicate, or more exhilarating. In that instant, I realized the full meaning of the transformation. It wasn't just about clothes, makeup, or wigs. It was about confidence, resilience, and embracing an identity that existed in both secrecy and exposure. The wind, the crowd, the unexpected arrival of the boss, all of it tested me, but the thrill, the power, and the self-discovery made every heartbeat worth it. And as the audience watched, as Isabella's approving gaze met mine, and as the city lights cast shimmering reflections across the scene, I understood something crucial. This challenge was no longer about hiding. It was about thriving, about claiming a space in the world where Alex and this new identity could coexist, even under scrutiny, even under pressure. The courtyard was alive with whispers and shifting gazes, a storm of attention that made every nerve in my body vibrate with tension. My heels clicked sharply against the stage as I took measured steps, trying to maintain balance, poise, and the flawless persona I had honed for months. The emerald dress clung perfectly, the wig's curls brushed just right against my shoulders, and the makeup glowed under the city lights, but inside, Alex thrashed against the exhilaration and fear that surged uncontrollably. Isabella's presence beside me was steadying, yet teasing. "Own it," she whispered, her hand brushing lightly against mine. "Show them everything." The words were both command and encouragement, a challenge that electrified me. I drew in a shaky breath and focused, letting the persona dominate every movement, every tilt of my head, every sway of my hips. Suddenly, a shout erupted from the edge of the crowd. My boss, still lingering, stepped closer, eyes narrowing, scanning every detail. Panic clawed at my chest. Could they recognize me now? Could one misplaced glance unravel everything? The crowd seemed oblivious to the tension, but I could feel every heartbeat, every whisper, every watchful gaze magnified to an unbearable intensity. A gust of wind, stronger than before, swept through the courtyard. The hem of my dress lifted dangerously, and for a heartbeat, I felt the potential of absolute exposure. Gasps rippled through the crowd, and I froze, caught between fear and the adrenaline of performing flawlessly under pressure. My hand shot out instinctively, pressing the fabric down, while my other hand maintained a graceful pose at my side. The balance was razor-thin. One misstep could shatter the illusion entirely. Then came the unexpected twist. Someone from the crowd, a friend of a friend, approached the stage, camera in hand, ready to capture the moment. My heart leapt. A photograph could reveal everything, expose the secret Alex had protected so fiercely. I forced a smile, projecting confidence, elegance and poise, even as every instinct screamed for me to flee. Isabella's whisper grounded me, "Don't stop. Keep moving." I pivoted smoothly, allowing the persona to glide across the stage, every movement calculated, deliberate, and captivating. The audience's eyes followed me, but the focus had shifted from scrutiny to admiration, curiosity, and fascination. The fear was still there, prickling at the edges of my consciousness, but the thrill of commanding attention, surviving every near discovery, and thriving under the impossible pressure gave me a surge of power I had never felt before. My boss stepped even closer, voice low but cutting. "Alex, is that really you?" The words sliced through the excitement, threatening to unravel me. I paused, letting the persona's confident smile answer, masking the pounding anxiety beneath. The heels dug into the stage, my legs trembling slightly, but I forced my posture straight, shoulders back, chin high. The duality of Alex and this new identity collided in a tense harmony, the fear and exhilaration feeding each other. Then Isabella whispered, almost conspiratorially, "Now the final step." My stomach tightened. I had no idea what she meant, but I trusted her. She guided me to the edge of the stage, where a single spotlight illuminated the ground beneath. The audience leaned forward, expectant. My heart raced. Every nerve was alert, every muscle coiled, every sense amplified. This was the culmination of months of secret preparation, private rituals, and small triumphs. It all led here. A sudden gust of wind nearly toppled my balance, the heels slipping slightly on the uneven stage floor. Gasps and murmurs spread through the audience, but I did not falter. My hand pressed firmly against the fabric of the dress, holding it in place, while my other hand extended gracefully, commanding attention. Every step, every gesture, was precise, deliberate, and fearless. I realized then that the transformation was more than physical. It was emotional, psychological, and profoundly liberating. The boss finally spoke again, softer this time, almost uncertain. I didn't expect this, they admitted, a flicker of recognition and surprise in their eyes. Relief surged through me, but it was tempered by awareness. The challenge was not over. Every eye in the courtyard, every camera lens, every whispered conversation held the potential for exposure. I drew in a deep, steadying breath, letting the persona fully inhabit me, commanding presence, elegance, and confidence with every movement. The crowd erupted in applause as Isabella clapped proudly beside me. The spotlight bathed me in warmth, reflecting off the emerald dress, the makeup, the carefully arranged curls. For a moment, the world froze, and I felt a profound sense of triumph. Alex had survived, adapted, and thrived under impossible scrutiny. Yet beneath the surface, the thrill, fear, and exhilaration lingered, a reminder that this journey was far from over. And as the applause faded, as the city lights shimmered across the stage, and as Isabella's approving gaze met mine, I realized the truth. This was more than a challenge, more than a game. It was a declaration of identity, resilience, and empowerment. A secret no one could take away, a persona fully alive, fully visible, and unshakably real. The courtyard was electric, every eye on me, every heartbeat amplified. The applause from the previous moment had faded, leaving a tension so thick it pressed against my chest. Heels dug into the uneven ground, every sway of my hips deliberate, every tilt of my head a careful statement of confidence. But beneath the surface, Alex's fear and exhilaration pulsed like wildfire. Isabella's hand rested lightly on my back, steadying, yet teasing. "It's time," she whispered. My stomach twisted. Time for what? The crowd's gaze was unrelenting, and my boss lingered a few steps away, eyes wide with a mix of curiosity and disbelief. Every instinct screamed for retreat, for hiding, but retreat was no longer an option. The persona had to survive, had to thrive, under scrutiny from every angle. Then came the twist, a sudden shout from the far edge of the courtyard. Someone I hadn't expected appeared, my best friend, laughing, waving, moving directly toward the stage. Panic surged. Could they recognize me? Could this ruin everything? I froze for a heartbeat, letting a soft laugh escape, masking the pounding in my chest. Isabella's fingers tightened briefly on my arm, a subtle encouragement. "Keep going," she said, and the words ignited courage in me. I stepped forward, heels clicking sharply, letting the emerald dress sway naturally. My chest rose and fell in measured breaths, my gaze sweeping across the crowd, absorbing every flicker of expression. The crowd was a living sea, waves of curiosity, fascination, and admiration, yet the threat of exposure never left. Every step was a negotiation between fear and performance, vulnerability and strength. The friend approached, and recognition flickered in their eyes. "Alex, wait, is that you?" Panic surged anew. But this time, I didn't hesitate. I smiled confidently, letting the persona fully inhabit me. "It's me," I said softly, voice warm, controlled, feminine. The thrill of revelation surged. Here, in the open, under every gaze, the secret was no longer a shadow. A hush fell over the crowd, the air charged with tension. The friend blinked, surprise and amusement mixing across their features. My boss stepped closer, uncertainty in their eyes. Every second stretched, the stakes impossibly high. My pulse thundered, but I drew in a deep breath, letting the persona dominate. Confidence, elegance, poise, it all radiated outward, a shield against fear. Then another twist. Isabella's phone buzzed urgently. She glanced at it, her expression tightening. "Someone else is coming," she murmured. My heart skipped. Who now? Every arrival risked exposure. The crowd seemed oblivious, but my senses were hyper-alert. The wind teased the hem of the dress, the heels balanced on uneven pavement, and every subtle shift could reveal too much. I stepped forward deliberately, controlling every movement, every gesture, every tilt of my head. The persona was complete. Alex's fear and vulnerability channeled into controlled, captivating performance. The crowd watched, mesmerized, unaware of the storm behind the facade. I realized then that the transformation was more than physical. It was emotional, psychological, complete. The new arrival, a stranger to most, yet someone with authority, paused at the edge of the stage. Recognition flickered briefly, uncertainty and curiosity mingled in their gaze. Every heartbeat thundered in my chest. Could I maintain the illusion? Could I survive the scrutiny without faltering? The thrill, the fear, and the exhilaration fused, electrifying every nerve. Then Isabella whispered, almost conspiratorially, "This is it, the final moment." I drew in a deep breath, letting it fill my chest, steady my trembling hands. I took a slow step forward, shoulders back, chin high. The persona radiated confidence and poise, even as Alex's heart pounded like a drum. Every eye was on me, every movement observed, every breath a silent test. The stranger finally spoke, their voice low but curious. I didn't expect this," they said. Recognition, surprise, and admiration mingled in their tone. Relief surged through me, tempered by the awareness that the challenge was far from over. The applause from the crowd erupted again, louder, more genuine, validating months of secret preparation, practice, and risk. I met Isabella's eyes, and her approving smile told me everything. The persona had survived, thrived, and conquered the impossible. The adrenaline was electric, every nerve alive, every sense heightened. I had faced fear, scrutiny, and potential exposure, and emerged transformed, empowered, undeniably visible. And yet, the final challenge lingered. The crowd was still there, the city lights shimmering across the scene, the heels pressing into the pavement, the emerald dress catching every reflection. The thrill, the fear, the excitement. It was all suspended in that breathless moment, leaving me on the edge of revelation. The night was far from over, and every second carried the promise of new challenges, new exposure, and new self-discovery. The camera lenses clicked, the crowd whispered, and Isabella's hand squeezed mine briefly. And in that charged silence, I realized the ultimate truth. The game had turned me into someone more than Alex. Someone daring, resilient, empowered, and alive. But the next move, whether triumph or disaster, was still unknown. The cliffhanger hung in the air like electricity. Who would truly see the secret tonight? Would Isabella's friends, my boss, or my best friend uncover the hidden Alex? And most importantly, what would happen next, when the thrill of exposure met the reality of consequences? The courtyard had quieted slightly, the crowd buzzing with soft chatter, cameras clicking, and murmurs of surprise still echoing in the air. I stood on the stage, emerald dress catching the light, heels steady despite the trembling in my legs. Every heartbeat was amplified, a constant reminder of the risks I had taken, the secrets I had tried to protect, and the transformation I had fully embraced. Isabella's hand rested lightly on my back, grounding me, yet the tension between us was electric. Her smile was approving, teasing, and filled with challenge all at once. "You did it," she whispered, though the words felt almost ironic. Did I really? I had survived the scrutiny of my boss, navigated unexpected arrivals, maintained perfect poise under cameras and the crowd's gaze. But the ultimate revelation was still looming, just beyond reach. From the corner of my eye, I noticed movement, a familiar shadow crossing the edges of the courtyard. My stomach twisted. Could it be someone else arriving, someone who would see through the carefully constructed persona? The thought made my pulse jump, adrenaline surging through my veins. I forced a controlled smile, tilting my head in perfect confidence, letting the persona radiate composure even as Alex's fear threatened to surface. The stranger, someone I had least expected, paused, scanning the scene. Recognition flickered in their eyes, a dangerous spark that made every nerve in my body tense. I felt my heart hammer against my ribcage, the world narrowing to a single taut moment. Every detail, the swish of the dress, the curve of the wig, the glint of makeup under the city lights, was on display, every secret at risk of unraveling. Isabella squeezed my hand, her touch grounding me yet amplifying the tension. "You're ready," she whispered. I swallowed hard, my mind racing. Ready for what? Ready for exposure, ready for confrontation, ready for the consequences of living fully in this persona I had hidden for so long. The thrill and fear intertwined, making every breath feel like a high-stakes gamble. The crowd seemed oblivious, caught in their own conversations, unaware of the storm that raged beneath my composed exterior. Yet I could feel every gaze, every subtle movement, every whispered word magnified into an invisible pressure around me. The city lights reflected off the stage, the dress, the heels, and every flicker of fear and exhilaration within me. Suddenly, a phone buzzed loudly from somewhere behind the crowd. Isabella glanced down, her expression flickering with tension. "They're coming," she muttered, almost under her breath. My heart skipped. Who? When? How soon? The suspense tightened, wrapping around my chest like a vice. Every second was an eternity, every movement a calculated risk. I adjusted the hem of the dress, letting the fabric flow naturally while keeping my posture impeccable. My pulse raced, adrenaline coursing through me, yet the persona projected calm, grace, and poise. I had become fully immersed in this identity, strong, visible, and undeniably alive. But Alex, underneath it all, still trembled with the fear of exposure, the thrill of being seen, and the uncertainty of what was coming next. From the edge of the courtyard, a shadow moved closer. Recognition flickered in the eyes of someone I thought I had hidden from, someone whose presence could undo months of secrecy. My knees threatened to buckle under the tension, but I forced them steady, letting the persona shine even as every instinct screamed for retreat. Isabella's voice broke through my thoughts, soft but commanding. "Whatever happens next, you've already transformed." Her words were comforting, but they didn't erase the storm. I knew that exposure, revelation, and potential confrontation were imminent. The crowd's chatter faded into a background hum, the city lights casting dramatic shadows, every heartbeat stretching into endless seconds. And then, the final moment of suspense. The figure at the edge of the crowd stepped forward, recognition clear, a dangerous curiosity in their gaze. My breath caught. Would they see through me? Would they discover the secret Alex I had worked so hard to protect? I froze, heels digging into the ground, emerald dress flowing perfectly, wig curls shimmering under the lights. The persona radiated confidence, but the tension was unbearable. The camera lenses clicked, whispers echoed, and the city seemed to hold its breath. Isabella's hand tightened briefly on my back, a subtle reassurance. And in that charged, electric moment, the story hung in perfect suspense. Would my secret finally be revealed, or would the persona survive another day? The scene froze, the crowd oblivious yet alive with possibility, the city lights reflecting the uncertainty, the thrill, and the danger. My heartbeat roared in my ears, every nerve alive with tension and exhilaration. The cliffhanger was complete, leaving every question unanswered, every possibility open, and the audience on the edge of their seats. Who would uncover the truth tonight? What would Isabella do if the persona was exposed? Could Alex survive this ultimate test without losing control of their secret identity? The answers were unknown, hanging in the air like electricity, pulling the audience into speculation, fear, and anticipation. And as the camera pans, lights shimmering off the stage, the emerald dress, and the poised figure standing tall in the center, one thought lingers. The game has only just begun,